Without further ado, Amy, Taiji, welcome to the museum.
Sansei line dance. The uneven beat of the taiko drum or the 5/4 beat of Brubeck's Take 5. June's koto and Mom playing Claire de Lune every time she visits. I still remember when Gil Scott sang What's the Word and we sang Johannesburg. Or Larry plays the stylistics for me after we've run out of things to say. And I'm line dancing to Don Julian and the Meadowlarks in the basement of the all-Japanese Presbyterian Church. Back at Parkview Auditorium, Willie G serenades the entire East Side, and Asians too. We slow dance to Sad Girl, learn cha-cha like they do in El Monte. We're LA Buddha heads in the 60s. Some call us imitators, having no style to call our own. But don't you hear the shakuhachi in the wind, holding the long note between all the songs? Deliberate. So by 16, we move in packs, learn to strut and slide in deliberate low-down rhythm, talk in a syncopated beat, because we want so bad to be cool, never to be mistaken for white, even when we leave these rowdier LA streets. Remember how we paint our eyes like gangsters, flash our legs in nylons, sassy black high heels or 2-inch zippered boots, stack them by the door at night, next to Daddy's muddy gardening shoes. I'd like to thank all of you for coming here today to help us launch the recent completion of my second book, Nights of Fire, Nights of Rain. It's been a long waiting. The manuscript was actually accepted in early '95. So any of you that know the current state of small presses and small independent bookstores nowadays know there's quite a struggle going on against the big bookstores like Barnes & Noble, Borders. So all the small people are suffering, and then that affects us small poets. But it's done. A couple of people in particular I'd like to thank. First, my sister Mary Uyematsu, gal, who's right here, because she did the very fine artwork and the calligraphy on the title pages. And then also, I'm fortunate to be working with Taiji Miyagawa. He was here for my first book party, and he's here for the second, and hopefully there'll be more. Yeah, Taiji Miyagawa. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming here today. On this nice day, it's hard to come inside and listen to poetry. All right. The poem I'm going to read next was spurred by my overhearing a conversation by some writers, some women in fact, who were talking about their favorite types of jewelry. And one woman said that she didn't like to wear her birthstone, amber, which is yellow, and it got into a whole thing of color. And of course I was sort of sitting in the background reacting. So I wrote a poem called In America, Yellow is Still an Insult. One, I want to know why cowards are called yellow. I've seen a few in my time with their ghost white skin. Who named journalism yellow when it reached new lows? And when did union traitors turn into yellow dogs? Two, she says she won't wear amber, her birthstone. Does its yellow remind her more of the shade of piss than gold, a ripe lemon, or those famous fields of grain? Is it the yellowish-green discoloration in newborns endangered with jaundice? Statistics back up her dislike. Yellow, the least preferred of all primary colors. 3. Immunize against Hong Kong flu number 5, even more deadly than last year's Asian viral strain number 44C. Microscopic infestations of the latest yellow peril, too many boatloads and planefuls to stop. Symptom: Asians are the fastest growing population in California. 4. You can't even imagine being me, a yellow-skinned man, instant caricature, nameless slant-eyed enemy with kamikaze mentality, devious as Charlie Chan and his Karate Kid counterpart. I'm Jerry Lewis on Saturday morning cartoons, all buck-toothed and sing-song incomprehensible. College nerd with no testosterone. Grinning, squinting businessman, always dressed in the same dark suit and camera. I'm cast as the voiceless boyfriend who deserves to lose lovely Asian to big brave Anglo. I play the cowering eunuch who stars in no woman's fantasies. Just try to be a real yellow man in America and know the legacy of insult. This next poem also has an Asian American theme. A number of years ago, I read or heard that at Hart Mountain concentration camp, they found a big container of stones. And all the stones had Japanese kanji characters written on them. Kanji is like Chinese calligraphy, for those of you that don't know. And so, and I never really have seen any explanation for why those rocks were there and what it all meant. So I wrote a piece with my own version. This is dedicated to the 12,000 Japanese Americans interned at Hart Mountain, Wyoming. The Well. Imagine a mountain whose name is Heart. At the throat of the mountain, they fill a well with so many stones it can hold nothing more. They'd never heard of the mountain named Heart, Kokoroyama, till they were taken as prisoners to Heart Mountain. Imagine a heart big enough to be called mountain. A mound of stones, too many to count, remain, each inscribed by a different hand, each crying out. Some simply reveal the writer's name, Shizuko, a woman, or a family known as Osajima. Most of the hand-painted rocks carry a single kanji: snow, wind, cold, sky, shame, home, bird. Okay, this next, when Taiji and I were going over what I'm going to be reading, this next poem or two. I couldn't decide whether I should do something about getting older or maybe a real woman's poem that talks about PMS. And so I think I'm going to go with the PMS looking at the song. Also for the men who were partnered with people, and they have to also experience those somewhat tense times that come on a regular basis. So I think you can relate to this. I think the women here, you know how crazy we can be. And at the time you're that crazy, you don't realize it, huh? And then later, maybe a couple weeks later, you can maybe admit, yeah, it was PMS. But at the time, you're sure that you're perfectly reasonable. You know what I mean, right? You're sure you were perfectly reasonable. What I can count on. Only 50 or 60 eggs left, coming closer together. Sooner than the next full moon, each cycle more brutal. Am I the same woman who used to own this mother's body? So entitled to the stretch marks, darker nipples, knowing I could grow another baby now or tomorrow? I don't know when I began to believe in the curse or demand my innately female right to insanity. Some ancient demon shrills inside me, nature unwilling to let me die quietly, blinding me with a rage I don't welcome. I'm the every 26th night shrew I could kill and not remember. More than once I wake up sweating, though there's been no nightmare. I cry with no provocation. Too much blood gathers in me, heavy, then gushing out hot, an unmistakable odor of rotting. My body still trying to reproduce this unnameable clot that bursts one more time from an unused womb. So that's for the women. And then, of course, I've got my little poem for the men. We've got to keep it even here. I won't tell you the theme of this. I think it's going to become obvious when I read it. But every place I've read this, no one disputes it. It seems to be true wherever we go. And Taiji, too, has been polling some of his male friends, and they say, yeah, it seems to be the case. This is called Not So Remote Control. Look at how this man in my house insists on holding that little black box. No one else dares vie for its possession. His fingers stronger than ever before, even in sleep. His limp body and heavy breathing are just a guise, as I fail to pry his fingers free from his tiny instrument. I've checked with other women, and all of us think this obsession peculiar to men. Just to keep peace in the nest, we relinquish the remote control to our husbands and lovers. And if they're not at home, we notice it's our sons, not daughters, who wrangle and wrestle for next in line rule. It reminds me of childhood, before TV had taken over our lives. My entire family followed an unspoken ritual for viewing the Sunday Times. No one could touch the paper before Father, who'd read it in the same precise sequence. Once he dropped a section to the floor, we kids scrambled, hoping to fish up the funnies. Whoops. Sorry about this. The times have gotten scary. This multifunction electronic weapon, so much more sinister, family upon family subject to the whims of its possessor, and his cycle need to jump from baseball to animal documentaries, jumble in some Jeopardy, speed flick to basketball, old black and white love flicks, football replays, even random channel checks, just to make sure he won't miss anything important. whenever I tried to tease him, playfully demanding a woman's turn to push those buttons, he always gives me the same look, silently warning, there are just some things in the world a man shouldn't have to explain. That's for Raul and Chris, who I still can't get that remote control from. How many of you watched the Winter Olympics? Yeah. Well, during that time, I mean, you could see how beautiful Nagano is. And one day I was watching a Sunday morning show, and they had a little silent piece where they were showing snow cranes in that area of Japan. Some of you see that? It was just beautiful. Cranes are already elegant birds, but Japanese snow cranes are spectacular. This piece was based on watching those snow cranes. Watching snow cranes in Nagano. What stands? After the snows, all is hidden but these slender survivors. Silhouetted here, the long stilted legs, the branches spare. From winged skies, they find their way to land. Every heart that stops to listen. The slow bend at her neck as the head leans back, eyes half closed, the cawing wordless and familiar, so shrill that cry trapped in the body which echoes now through every mountain pore. Japanese calligraphy. On the silent landscape, nothing moves but these magnificent white birds. Black brushed on their heads and tapered necks, the bold crowns of red, the flush of black along wings, unexpected beauty only revealed when open. Sparse, elegant flurries of black and red in the white of winter, deep in the mountains, earliest quiverings, seeds for the hands. As snow cranes return every winter, all of this is one, a memory from sky to bird, of wing to human eye. The next two poems have mother's themes, I'd say. The first piece I wrote, the first Mother's Day my son was away for college. He went back east for 4 years, and now he's working in New York, so I don't get to see him that often anymore. So that first year he went off, I wrote this piece. And then after that, I'll be reading a poem in 10 short sections called Belly Breaths. And it's also related to the whole theme of motherhood and birth and creation and recycling. Mother's Day poem to myself. Your cord took 10 days to fall off. A tiny dry twig. You didn't feel it breaking away from your belly. I barely remember finding the shriveled stub, almost unnoticed in your bathwater, not knowing I'd want to keep this as evidence, this thread of skin which grew in my body solely to feed you. I should have saved our cord in a small earthen jar, kept it with a lock of your hair, so straight and black, even at birth. Did anyone warn me there'll be weeks I never hear your voice, Days, even I no longer wonder what you're doing. How could I know that mothers like me have only 18 years before we finally feel the cut? Belly breaths. 1. The belly of the world is empty and round. Do you hear its noisy breathing or its deep, silent laugh? 2. Inside the womb, a baby and its mother breathe, belly inside belly. The world of the mother so warm and wet, long before new life is forced out into light to breathe on its own. 3. It's in the hunger that we know who we are. 4. In Japanese, the word kokoro, a tiny container for what can't possibly be put into words, mind, heart, spirit, idea, will, attention. 5. When was the last time we laughed till our bellies ached? 6. His belly full with mother's milk, the baby can't help smiling in his sleep. 7. Danger. Don't forget to feed the imagination. 8. Like a pine tree, grow deep roots, spread branches thick with evergreen, bring breath close to the core. I'm going to introduce another 2-poem set. Many of the poems in my new book were written around the time of the LA riots, and so the whole first section is very political. And it is about how hard it is to survive and cope in Los Angeles in the last several years. This first piece, Summons, was inspired by fear, actually. One day in my classroom, one of my 9th grade students was carrying a gun, and I didn't find out till later. One of the other students told me, and then I reported him. And what spurred my fear was that he was a gang member, and I got a subpoena to appear against him in court. And I had been told, in fact, the dean had guaranteed, nothing, you'll be anonymous, nothing will happen. Anyway, I never showed, but in the meantime, during those days of waiting, I was very frightened because I figured, hey, if he sees me and his gang partner see me, who knows what could happen. So anyway, the first poem was inspired by that. And then the second poem is a poem about the riots. Summons. We say we aren't the believers, but we won't leave the burning cities. We still think it's possible to die peacefully in our sleep. Even now, when we have to train ourselves to laugh out loud in our dreams, we pray for the gift of indifference. Let it take over so slowly, we won't feel the narcosis sneak in. It won't depend on one catastrophe too much, and we can still be amazed at how easily the brain protects us from this knowledge our eye brings to the heart, tricking us into another good night's sleep as we gather around the corpses, making sure we can't identify them. We take up gambling in a serious way, become more superstitious, reminded how rats in a maze get riled up when there's a full moon. We do anything to better our odds, pay attention to all the warnings, don't go to bed with open windows, inhale in half breaths, consider sex with new lovers a dangerous political act, we go to murderous lengths to maintain a small semblance of order. We don't have to be threatened, lined up against the wall and blindfolded. We know what it feels like to wait for that random bullet aimed into the crowd for the sheer pleasure and power of its anonymity. Yes, we cheer when it misses us. We lock our children indoors while watching the neighborhood kids gun each other down. We have never laughed harder for our good luck. No more talk about the end of the planet. We refuse to take anything too seriously. Instead, we'll hire troops of clowns to travel throughout the empire, pay them good money to keep us laughing. We'll breathe just a little harder in our sleep, but we can endure anything, even will the victims' faces right out of our dreams. The 10 Million Flames of Los Angeles, a New Year's poem, 1994. I've always been afraid of death by fire. I am 8 or 9 when I see the remnants of a cross burning on the Jacobs front lawn. 17 when Watts explodes in 65. 44 when Watts blazes again in 1992. For days, the sky scatters soot and ash which cling to my skin, the smell of burning metal everywhere. And I recall James Baldwin's warning about the fire next time. Fires keep burning in my city of the angels, from South Central to Hollywood. Burn, baby, burn. In 93, LA's Santana winds incinerate Laguna and Malibu. Once the firestorm begins, wind and heat regenerate on their own, unleashing a fury so unforgiving it must be a warning from the gods. Fires keep burning in my city of the angels. How many does it take? Burn, LA, burn. Everybody says we're all going to hell. No home safe from any tagger, gangster, carjacker, neighbor. LA gets meaner by the minute as we turn our backs on another generation of young men, become too used to this condition of children killing children. I wonder who to fear more. Fires keep burning in my city of angels, but I hear someone whisper, mi angelita, mi angelita. Though I ready myself for the next conflagration, I feel myself giving into something I can't name. I smile more at strangers, leave big tips to waitresses, laugh when I'm stuck on the freeway, content just listening to B.B. King's Why I Sing the Blues. Mi angelita, mi angelita. I'm starting to believe in a flame which tries to breathe in each of us. I see young Chicanos fasting one more day in a hunger strike for education, read about gang members preaching peace in the hood, hear Reginald Denny forgiving the men who nearly beat him to death. I look at people I know as if for the first time, sure that some are angels. I like the unlikeliness of this unhandsome crew, the men losing their hair, needing a shave, those with dark shining eyes, and the gray-haired women, rage and grace in each unhurried step. What is this fire I feel? This fire which breathes freely inside without burning them alive. Fires keep burning in my city of angels, but someone calls to me, Angelita, do not run from the flame. This next poem has two parts and two related themes. I would say it's accurate that since I was a teenager, I've had crushes on just about every saxophone player I've seen perform. almost, yeah, it's pretty consistent. And I'm pretty sure until I'm old, I will still have those crushes on saxophone players. No offense. These players aren't bad. I wrote this at the time I met my boyfriend, who conveniently plays saxophone. And also, the second theme in here is maybe just about the whole process of breathing, because he has a history of asthma. And so the thought always intrigued me that here he has asthma and he played the saxophone, which involves so much breath. This piece is called The Shape of One Man's Breathing. Saxophone man. A woman who can't stop watching the grip of your hands, the fit of your lips and tongue on the small reed mouthpiece, wants you to play her like your sax, pressed lightly against chest, held in a low curl along belly and thighs, or tight as you reach all the way down, lift torn from hips, legs kicking to a quick pulse, fingers landing blindly, groove to sweet groove. She can't help staring, and you keep wailing, this last chance to blast your way back. Breath. Born 2 months early, hardly enough breath to keep you alive. You surprised everyone when you took a saxophone. Sometimes at night, you grasp breath, or after we make love, inhale hard. To survive, you're learning the shape of breath, a gift I no longer take for granted. You teach me about saxophone riffs as we listen to Barbieri, Coltrane, Bird. Every time you play your body to mine, the refrain begins from a brand new breath, coming such a long way. Wind and me playing back, sweet, unexpected notes as we improvise together, stretching the riff. For the last poem, I'm going to give a little bit of background here. When Mary and I were growing up, Susie too, my high school friends here, when we were growing up in the mid-60s, there weren't any ethnic movie stars to idolize that I can remember on the American screen. And Mary and I used to watch Route 66, and like George Maharis, and I think it's because he was real dark looking, dark Mediterranean, how he's Greek. And then we also liked George Chakiris, another Greek, who was also dark, right? We didn't go for John Wayne or the blonde, blue-eyed movie stars. Fortunately, back then, there were some active Japanese-American movie houses. The Linda Lee Theater downtown, In the Crenshaw area, there was the Kokusai, and then there was also the Toho La Brea Theater. And I used to go to the latter too. And one of my movie idols was Toshiro Mifune, who died last year, unfortunately. So he and Tatsuya Nakadai, oh yeah, Moko, yeah. So we had big time crushes on those guys. I didn't have a crush on the Blind Swordsman, but I liked him too. Zatoichi, yeah, Zatoichi was cool. So I miss those theaters. Those theaters have all closed down. Yeah. Also, this was the time, a real flourishing time for Akira Kurosawa and all his big samurai movies, his big epic productions. So the last poem will be about Toshiro. Before Bruce Lee, there was Toshiro Mifune, with thanks to Akira Kurosawa and the Toho La Brea Theater. Toshiro, you were so much more to me than your movie star beauty. Though no one but you could look so appealing in a ragged kimono, days without a bath, scratching your head as you'd scrutinize the world. Undeniably the best swordsman in Japan, you took on single opponents or a gang of 40 with equal aplomb. And with that almost humane efficiency, your sword moved faster than the eye, each cut so quick and clean, your victims fell before they could utter a cry. You were the perfect, imperfect hero, willing to defend a village of poor farmers who'd repay you with a bowl of hot rice, or selling yourself to the highest bidder. You played crooked merchants against conniving officials and noblemen. It was your unfortunate karma to be born into the rank of Bushido warrior. Each time you killed, I knew you felt no satisfaction. You were never the first to draw your sword. All the women who watched you wanted you, though you were awkward at romance. Not once did I see you kiss a leading lady or lie naked with her the night before battle. You'd keep a girl waiting for months, even years, like the lover who followed you throughout the long 3-part saga, The Legend of Musashi. Toshiro, you were my first true film idol, the Asian hero I could never find on the American screen. I'll even admit you blessed those early years of marriage, when my young husband and I spent Saturday nights at the Toho La Brea. As the lights flashed back on, my husband and every other Japanese man in the audience would go home at least a few inches taller. No one can forget you, Toshiro, in that brilliant duel when you shifted your sword to reflect the sun, the steel blade dazzling your enemy's eye. And at the end of the story, as you slowly turned your back and walked into the horizon, that slightly bow-legged swagger in your every step, no one came close. Thank you very much.
Buy a book.
Yeah, please buy
Buy a
books.
book.
Please send your friends to buy books too.
We have books for sale on the back table. Amy's also granted to sign
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
so she'll be back at the back table signing books. Thank you for coming. And thank you again.
Great reading. That base.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Maybe sometimes I'll be on the just pulling it out of sleep. You go when you're that's what everyone I'll do that. Very honestly, it was funny. Talk about the blind, sighted, one leg.
Oh, he was trained by anyone more talented.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
There's going to be some kid who's better. I got one area or another. So, I mean, are you talking about me or well, I tell you, prompted, it's a thought for me. Where would I go? Build another farm somewhere else. Where?